Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. This is episode 36, and we are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. Got a big one to talk about. Spurs have won two matches in a row for the first time in the year two Premier League matches for the first time in the year 2025. Big news. According to the media, the title challenge is back on. If you're reading things from the press, right? It's crazy how quickly things ebb and flow in the footballing world. But yeah, lots to talk about. With me as always. First, my co-host Max at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
Not much. Just excited to be back in the title race. You know, we got some good opposition to go up against: Liverpool, Arsenal, maybe even Forest at this point. But yeah, it's going to be a big final stretch, and let's see if we can bring it home.
No doubt. Yeah, the supercomputer was at work this week, according to a few articles I read. And the supercomputer did pick Spurs to finish 14th, one place behind Man United, which, of course, is wildly incorrect in my opinion. The supercomputer did pick Bournemouth to finish fourth, which I thought was interesting. Arsenal does fall short in the supercomputer simulation, so always nice to see with Liverpool getting the title. But yeah, we're here to poke holes in that supercomputer. That's what this episode is all about. And with Max and I to do that is Robbie at Robbie Light, Robbie_Light on Twitter. Robbie, what's up?
Not too much. The vibes are back, I think. I was sending some screenshots in the chat of all the positive shithousery going on Twitter after two wins. An important thing to call out, maybe you had this earmarked. This is the first time Tottenham has won back-to-back games this season since they beat Brentford and Manchester United back-to-back earlier this year, and they just beat Brentford and Manchester United back-to-back. So
that's what we do.
We're back.
We beat Brentford and Man United back-to-back. That's what we do.
Hell yeah, that's what we do, man. Win titles, beating Brentford and Man United.
Let's go. We'll take dubs anywhere. Interesting stat to go along with that stat. Spurs are actually the first team since 2012/13 when Chelsea did so to beat Man United 3 times in a single season. So we've got that going for us.
And it's going to be 4. So
absolutely, probably 5, right?
I mean, could be 5. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's possible, but I mean, if it is, it's going to be 5.
Yeah, if we get him in the semis, maybe we can't the way the bracket.
I think we're on opposite sides of the bracket, so it's just going to be the 1. But you know, maybe we can.
Final.
Yeah, some like a friendly out or something, and just make it fun. Yeah.
You know, call me crazy, but I do not anticipate Man United getting to the Europa League final.
Neither do I. I don't think they anticipate us getting there either. So I don't know if it's going to be a big problem for either team.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, not to jump too far ahead because we'll get to the podcast when we talk about City. But as it stands, Tottenham 5-0 against the City of Manchester. So big year for us to try to go 6-0 and clean sweep. We'll see.
I mean, if you put all the teams from the Premier League that are wildly underperforming in a bracket, it's probably the 3 of us, right? So you could say that the league table, when it comes to wildly underperforming, we're in first place. So stick that in the trophy.
You could definitely say that.
Yeah, 100%. Sick trophy. Might as well call it the Audi Cup. Anyways,
we won the mid trophy this weekend, so
battle of mid champs, baby.
Yeah,
no doubt. I was at my best friend's house. He's a massive Juve fan, and Juve got the 1-0 win in the Derby d'Italia against Inter. Spurs get the 1-0 win in the battle of the mid. Just a good day for my buddy Dave and I. Victories all around. Let's talk about it, fellas. Spurs take down Man United 1-0 at home. The lone goal for Maddison in the 13th minute. Off what is a wonderful hit from Bergvall, in my opinion. Was it a volley, half volley? I can't quite remember, right? But yeah, good left-footed strike from Bergvall off a Sonny cross, and I believe what we call the big switch to Sonny, right? Prior to the cross, and Sonny hit that cross on the volley too, if I'm not mistaken.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do for the layman. Those of us sitting in the armchair, right? We maybe forget that hitting a volley cross off of a full field switch is, not the easiest thing in the world to do. So shout out to Sonny for a great ball in. great shot from Bergvall, and then wonderful job from Maddison just being in the right place and reading the game properly and staying on side. And I love the celebration, right? Ask Roy Keane to keep quiet, which plenty of people probably want to do, right? I personally think Roy Keane's great to watch on television. But shout out to Matters for that one. Max, what'd you make of Maddison's return? Because I think that's a big talking point here.
I mean, I thought he was so good. First half was exceptional, and we're just so much better attacking. Like, it genuinely was like a completely different team going forward. Like, even from the Brentford game, we were pragmatic for most of that game, and our goals came off counterattacks, and Brentford kind of dominated. We were really on the front foot most of the game here, and I think Maddison was a big part of that. And this is something that we talked about on Friday on this podcast, is how big of a deal. I made a point of saying that Maddison had the highest goals plus assists per 90 on the team, and he's just adding to that. And I think it's been understated how big of a deal he is to this team's success because of what we've talked about numerous times. Maybe the relationship with Ange, him being dropped from the team. It's been an interesting saga, but beyond all of that, every time he's on the pitch, he's contributing to goals and assists for Tottenham, and we look way better in possession when he's there. And it was another wonderful performance from him in his return, and he's going to be someone that's really important for us if we want to keep this momentum up.
Yeah, fully agreed. Robbie, Max kind of alluded to this, but there was some sort of consensus that Maddison maybe wasn't required or wasn't in Ange's favor, and we did see moments where he wasn't featuring. From the vibe check perspective, right, the fans, do you think that all of that has been pretty squashed by Maddison's performance yesterday and everybody's fully back in on James Maddison?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, from my perspective, I think James Maddison was someone who was a victim of, there's been too many injuries, and he's to me someone that kind of fell to the bottom of the pile. Like, a lot of people just stopped remembering about James Maddison or thinking about him, honestly, because we were so focused on other major injuries. Because yeah, he has been, this morning I heard Golden Guest break down the stats, but like, James Maddison already has more goals and I think almost more assists than at this point last year than he did the entire year last year. He also missed a ton of games last year, came back hurt, missed a bunch of games now, but obviously we mentioned in the chat too, like his goals per minute ratio or whatever is like super high. I've been a penchant of his the whole season, just saying like, I think we just learned that James Maddison is never meant to be a 90-minute player anymore, or maybe ever. Even at Leicester, he barely made it through a full season at any point in his career, I think. So in a team that can't keep anybody fresh, he's someone that is incredibly effective if we keep him fresh. So we need to keep keeping him fresh and resting him or bring him on as a sub. Or, I think some people read that maybe the wrong way. Like, I don't think it's easy to say, oh, him and Ange are at each other's throats or something. And maybe they are, who knows? But I just think it's maybe it's a realism check, an ego check for him to just say, hey, James, we know you're not going to stay healthy. So like, we need to limit your minutes to get the most out of you. And I honestly think that's where we're heading with Son, unfortunately. Yeah. Not that it's a permanent state for Son, but I think this season he has run ragged, and the rest of the season needs to be Son coming on at 60 minutes, 65 minutes. Let's let the young kids run out on wing and bring on Son as a Diogo Jota type sub who comes in and brings his energy for the final 30 minutes because his legs need a rest. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I never got the perception that anybody was against James Maddison. Maybe you guys saw differently, but I just think he's just been a victim of a lot of different injuries. And then, yeah, maybe just a ego check for him of like, hey, bro, we need you to play less to be better.
Well, not to point fingers, but I think on some past podcasts, Scott was a little skeptical of James Maddison's future here. And that was perfectly valid with the way Kulusevski was playing at the time. Like, who even knew what the situation at 10 was? Because we all know in the back of our heads that we got Bergvall and then we got Jamie Donnelly and potentially looking into options in the transfer market as well. But if you take a look in this season, For goal contributions, Maddison has 16 and Kulusevski has 19. Kulusevski leading the team with 19. He has played 1,000 more minutes than James Maddison.
Yeah.
And only has 3 more goal contributions. So if you're just looking at strictly from a stat standpoint, Maddison is one of our most efficient players. And obviously Kulu he's honestly been hurt by how much he's played. Like we all know what that means. Like he hasn't been rested at all. And it's affecting how he's playing. And we saw that in this game as well. So I guess we can kind of transfer into a Kulu conversation. I personally thought he was by far a worse player out there. He just looked completely lost. We had nothing on the counter. We were looking to counter a lot, like Spence was getting in transition really nicely. When we're looking to switch, we just had absolutely nothing out there on the right. So I'll throw it to Scott if you want to comment on Maddison real quick. But also, I was curious to see, like, how do we approach this with Kulu? Because we do have another week off, but then we're going to go back to a grind where it's going to be City midweek and then international break. And then we got the Europa League semifinal, or not semifinal, round of 16. I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm glad you brought up my thoughts on Maddison, because I think, like, when you take a step back, and granted there were a few performances that underwhelmed for sure from James Maddison, but I really believe that there's a lot of validity in what Robbie's saying here. I think Maddison, the reason he was still at Leicester when they got relegated and not at, I would say, probably either Arsenal or Man United, just based on his progression and the way that he plays, was because of his injury record. And he was very rarely fit for long periods of time, right? And so I do think a lot of what we saw from Ange was managing those minutes, like Robbie's saying. And I also think, to tie it into the Kulu conversation, there's still maybe not a perfect world where you have both of them on the field at the same time. And I think that may be a bit of a challenge for Ange going forward. Not that it's like this big problem, right? But I think figuring out how to get those two on the field at the same time and both efficient and effective is going to be a key thing for Ange Postecoglou to figure out if we want to continue to be successful. Obviously, Kulu doesn't have the injury record, but I agree with you. Kulu did not have a good game against Man United. He hasn't played well for a while, and it's one.
He hasn't played well for like 2 months, if we're keeping it a buck.
100%.
And it's not his fault, but
100%. It's strictly because of his minutes. We know this. I said in a separate group from this one yesterday, just another group chat I'm in, that if I were Ange, I would give Kulu a couple of days off this week. And this was yesterday having this conversation. I would give Kulu a couple full days off. Say, you're not expected at training. I don't care what you do. Go sit on the couch with your family, but you got 2 days off. Come back, catch up with the team, and you're not starting at the weekend against Ipswich. You're on the bench just in case I need you, right? But you're not starting this weekend. Just rest and recover this week, right? Ideally, I don't play you at all against Ipswich. It's only in case of emergency, break glass kind of situation, right? And you get them caught up for the run ahead. I completely agree with you, Max. And we've got Brennan Johnson back fit, or at least close to it. We've got Odebear, who made an appearance. We've still got Mikey Moore available. We now have Mateus Tell available. He's probably going to have to play the 9, but point is that people are coming back, and you can rest Kulusevski because he desperately needs it. He's still by far and away the best player on our team, no question about it, but he just needs to rest. But yeah, and I think we do. Let's just talk about the Maddison Kulusevski thing for a second, and I'll pass it over to you, Robbie, to tie this in. I mean, do you think there is a world where both of them are on the pitch at the same time? And I think I asked this question because I think you said it yesterday, Max, if I'm not mistaken, but Kulusevski at right wing stalls counterattacks and transitions for us a lot of times, right? And I think he's much better suited as an 8, but there's been times – I really think the only time I can remember Maddison as a 10 and Kulu as an 8, or a dual 8s or 8-10s, whatever we want to call it, right? It's not quite an 8 and a 10, but those two together, I really only remember it working well against Southampton in a 5-0 route, if I'm not mistaken. You know what?
We played it against Brentford. We played it a lot, like when we were winning. I don't know if there's a correlation there, but it was before all the injuries. We played it like post Newcastle and Arsenal games in August, where we really struggled to get attacks going. But then at the same time, the teams it was working against, like you said, were like bottom half teams. We haven't seen it work against any sort of like formidable opposition. But I'm curious to the lineup in that 4-0 Manchester City game, because I know Matters scored a brace in that at the 10. Was Kulu not playing in that game? I have a hard time thinking that he wasn't.
He played.
Yeah. So let
but
me
I think
pull
he
up
was
the
on
lineup.
the wing.
Yeah. So yeah, that. Yeah, I don't like him on the wing either. I completely agree with you, but there's instances where we have seen them both in the midfield, but it's oftentimes against, like you said, opposition that are championship quality or just slightly above that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and Robbie, I'm curious to get your take. I know you don't always love when I throw the tactical questions your way, right? So bear with me here, but yeah, when it comes to Maddison, Kulusevski, in a perfect world, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, maybe I'm probably the only one that feels this way, but I'd rather not see them on the pitch at the same time, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather them be interchangeable pieces with each other in a perfect world. They're not the same player. Like I was saying in the chat during the game, like, again, I'm definitely the least tactically adept person on this podcast and in our group chat, but when James Maddison plays midfield, he seems to be way more left than anyone else that plays in our midfield, which is great because we need that. I don't think we have 8 midfielders, and I don't think I've seen any of them play more left than James Maddison does. And we need that. And I said this in the chat too, like my preferred 8s, 10s, whatever is Bergvall and Maddison. I like those two together. I think we're at the stage of the season where I'd prefer we don't experiment, honestly. Like I don't want to lose momentum or lose, like, I don't want to start just throwing up everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. Let's stick to what works. And that probably means bringing Brennan back in at right wing, or maybe, Odebear at right wing, putting Kulu back in the middle when we can. Maybe it's him and Maddison split game time sometimes, or alternate games sometimes, or whatever that may look like to keep each other fresh. Interested in that. I think, I don't know. I'd rather, and yeah, to your point, I think Kulu stinks on the right wing only because his legs are gone. Like, I think that's just where he is. I was thinking this earlier too. Kulu and Porro, same exact conversation. We think, wow, they're dog shit, they're horrible on the pitch, whatever. And then Kulu had the most incredible cross to Tell on Tell's goal the other game. Even though Kulu was dog shit for 99% of that game, he had the most incredible cross that Tell scored on. Same with Porro. Porro does that out of the blue too. He'll get beat left, right, run up and down the pitch, and then have the most beautiful cross for a goal. So we know there's something in there. Obviously, he's just completely tired. But yeah, I think my personal opinion is I don't want them on the pitch at the same time, Maddison and Kulu. We need another offseason to figure out what that looks like, or practice it on the practice pitch. I don't want to see it on the game field and see us struggle to score for 3 more games, and while we're trying to figure that out. But
yeah, it's interesting. I obviously know far less than Ange Postecoglou does about not only football itself, but the way that he wants to play football. This is just a total wild thing for a fan to say, right? And that's what this podcast is all about. We're fans, but I would love to see a world where you play a 4-1-2-1-2 or a 4-4-2 diamond is what they would say, right? With Bergvall as a 6, your 8s of Maddison and maybe Pop Sarr, and then Kulu as that 10 in behind 2 strikers. And that allows you to have Maddison roam off to the left in possession, Kulusevski play the 10, but also have that ability to drift if he wants to, right? And then you've got the front 2 of Solanke and Son or Tell, and one of them can also drift, right? Allowing the fullbacks to invert into that midfield shape and kind of complete that diamond, right? That would be awesome for me to see. I'm not asking Ange to do that. And if you're listening and you do want to hire someone to come in and help you with tactics, I am available. I would consider changing professions for that type of offer. But no, all jokes aside, Max, I want to get you in on this too, man. What's your thoughts on actually getting those 2 on the pitch at the same time?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Robbie. I don't know if it's going to work. If it's Kulu on the wing, that I'm just completely out on that. That's just a bad idea. But I also just think that Maddison's a better 10. than Kulusevski. But I don't know if every game Ange wants to play. Like, we've had press conferences where Ange is saying, I don't know, I want 3/8. I don't want a 10, so to speak. So it's interesting there. I think if we're throwing out formations, 4-2-3-1 would be a perfect formation for this team, because it has a more inverted, like more of like a 3 attacking midfielders rather than wingers. Obviously
Really
we've
invert
put
your fullbacks there, but
yeah, you can't, but I think it fits our squad better, to be honest, if we're not inverting our fullbacks and they can overlap. Because
yeah,
then if you have Archie Gray at the 6, then he can cover there, and then Sarr does a good job of that as well. And then you could have Maddison at the left attacking mid, Kulu center or right attacking mid, and then figure it out from there. I think Mikey Moore would be great suited. I think he's going to be turned into a more of a 10 type player as he develops. So that's probably not going to happen, but I don't think Kulu and Maddison together is going to happen either. I still want them both on the team, so I'm totally okay with working it out however it needs to go. But I think for now we should ride with Maddison, get Kulu a rest, like you said. But if it's a cup final, man, like, I don't know. I don't know who I would prefer in the starting lineup. It's going to be some tough decisions if we do get to those important games.
Yeah,
Well, this was a quick thing I'll say that was brought up by other media members, that when talking about the midfield combinations, and this is not really a tactical observation, really, but it's just a ability observation, I guess, that both Maddison and Bergvall are both good at holding the ball and getting the ball back when we lose it. And then they compared them to Sarr and Basuma, who are good at holding onto the ball, but they lose the ball, or like they don't get it back. They just like lose it and don't get it back. So we're much more in like command of the game when we have Maddison and Bergvall, because they both actively go back and get the ball again. Like if they lose it, they take it right back. I saw a ton of Bergvall doing that on the weekend, whereas Basuma and Sarr, if they lose it, we just don't get it back. But they're really good at like being a defensive midfielder. But if they're running up the pitch and they make a bad pass, probably, or they lose the ball, and then we just don't get it back. So that was the observation between some of our popular midfield combos.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think there's a decent amount to unpack there. I personally will first say that if I never see Bentancur or Basuma on the pitch again for Spurs, I'd be perfectly fine with that. And that's not going to happen. I mean, we can't get through the rest of the season without the two of them, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed. I think Lucas Bergvall was really good against United. I think Bergvall, my hot take is that Bergvall is top 5 in minutes on the team next year. I think he's going to be a massively important member of the squad next season as Ange looks to continue to build into this project. And I mean, the kid's 18 years old. By the time he's 21, 22, he could be lighting the league up. I kind of see him like a Phil Foden, not in terms of exactly how they play, but just like through a progression, right? I think he could be that good at the same age that Phil Foden really became, Phil Foden of current age. So I'm super excited about Bergvall. But yeah, the Maddison Kulusevski conundrum is, like I said earlier in the show, going to be one of Ange's bigger challenges as he moves forward. And the higher you climb in the manager ranks in terms of size and reputation of club and quality of players, one of the hardest things is keeping a bunch of superstars happy, right? And it really is probably one of the biggest challenges that a manager faces at this level. So it's going to be something for Ange to keep his eye on. I think they're both guys who are all in on the project and the team and will do what's right for the team, but they want to play as well. Max, if you had to pick, like, let's say this summer, one of them has to be sold and the other one has to stay, what does that look like for you?
I mean,
not that I'm asking for that. This is all hypothetical.
Yeah. I mean, that's a different question than who do I think is better.
Yeah.
I think Maddison's better. I'll just say it. I think he's a better player. I think he's a more complete footballer overall. And I've highlighted this on past podcasts. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago about like the ball striking ability and the technical, like real technical, like striking ability of Kulusevski is just lacking. But we have to remember that Kulusevski is 24. you can't sell him right now. Like Maddison is in his prime. If someone comes knocking and is offering like 50 plus million for James Maddison, then like I'd sell James Maddison. Right now, I think Maddison is better. I don't know if he's better in this system. And I think I just like him more as a player. He just plays like aesthetically, it's much more pleasing than Kulusevski. Also, last season really left a really bad taste in my mouth for Kulu, so he's kind of won back some grace in my eyes. But I don't know if you remember me and Chang coming into this season, we were big time out on Kulusevski. So now it's kind of done a 180 there, but I think I'd sell Maddison, but in the caveat that it's because Kulu is 4 years younger and still has time to hopefully develop.
Yeah, Robbie, what about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think my answer would definitely be age related. So yeah, I would sell Maddison, but don't want to sell either of them.
For sure.
But yeah, I would just lean to age on that discussion.
Yeah, all valid points from both of you. I do think Kulu is the only one on our team who can truly operate in super tight spaces through the middle. He's very, very talented when it comes to that. I think Maddison offers a little bit more in terms of the final third and in the box for sure, right? Madison's a goal
product.
100%. Kulu gets you there. Maddison is the guy that finishes plays, in my opinion. So they're both really important, and that's where I say Ant has got to find a way to get both of them on the field and have it be effective. The best managers get their best players on the field and figure out how to make it work, right? So we don't need to sell either of them. Again, I'm not asking for that, but I do think Ange is going to have to figure out again how to make both of them effective on the field together. And if he does that, we'll be much better for it as an organization. We're both very talented footballers. Robbie, you mentioned the press. We're going to switch gears here. We're going to talk about the fan protest. And we're not going to give it too much light and love, right? But I think it's worth mentioning. Tottenham fan protest that kicked off this weekend at the ground against Man United, reportedly up to 1,000 people marching against the club's ownership. Levy out, Enoch out, blah, blah, blah. What are you hearing? What are you reading, Robbie? What does it look like?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting for me now because having been in the neighborhood a few weeks ago, they took up the main road out, the Tottenham High Road. They were cheering, or they were chanting a bunch. I didn't quite hear, but videos that were posted by several Spurs media members, it was like really loud. Like it was, you could very clearly hear them. It like the video, the people were really far away, so it makes it look pathetic. But like the sound was really loud. So they were really, they did it for like a couple hours before the game, and then. This was the other point that Alistair Gold and Rob Guest brought up, that like during the game, they pretty much didn't protest or continue to chant. But at the end of the game, they hung around in the South Stand, had their banners up, were still chanting. But then Spurs play music after a win. So it was like drowning out their chants. So like it didn't really get much done. And the point that was made was like, this is the biggest Levy out organized protest they've ever seen. And it's still 1,000 people. So 61,000 people in the stadium, 1,000 of them actively chanting. When I was at the match, I will say, and I love this chant. I don't care about Levy. He don't care about me. All I care about is Kulusevski. They tried to start that every 3 minutes at the game I was at, and it would die out after like 6 seconds. Yeah. But like there was one or two recitations of it where it did go pretty well. I heard it at full volume at the Aston Villa Cup match. Like it was super loud, that chant. Yeah. At least maybe the microphones were near the visiting stand. And I think even at Anfield, you could hear it. Like it was a loud chant. But yeah, I think we've reached the point where, you know, even the media is starting to pick up on it. And that's the biggest thing is Sky Sports picked up on it. Even on the Peacock stream after the game, you know, Tim Howard right. I'm blanking the US goalie, blanking his name.
He's been an asshole to Spurs lately too, for what it's worth.
But they all spent like 10 minutes talking about it, and everyone's starting to realize, it's been 25 years under one director of football, or whatever his title you want to call it. I really don't know what his title is. One trophy, and can you think of any other major club in Europe that has kept someone in a position for 25 years like that. Like that was basically where they circled back to it. They're like, almost every other club has had turnover in that position. Maybe 8 years is at the longest, or 9 years. Maybe there was a team that had a big long run, but then that person moved on. They needed new ideas. It seems like Daniel Levy continues to surround himself with people that think just like him. I think we've all been woefully disappointed with Scott Munn and Lang, and the fact that they're not doing a bad job, but they are literally Daniel Levy times 3. Like, it's just 2 more Daniel Levy's is the impression that we're getting. Yeah. There's nobody there to, like, I got to thinking today, and this is never going to happen, but I was like, what if we fired Daniel Levy and just brought in Fabio? Like, what if we just gave him the keys to the kingdom? His suspension is up, I think, in a couple months. Let that ruminate for a little bit. And he seems to be at every match still, and is a friend of everyone at the club. But yeah, I don't expect anything to change, because Daniel Levy's number one job is to make this club money and the shareholders money, and he's doing it better than anyone ever has in the history of English soccer, in terms of a profitability standpoint. So I don't know if anything's ever going to happen. He's obviously a lifelong Spurs fan, as far as I understand. And I saw a one-line report saying he's been hurt by all of the protests and chants and whatever. But yeah, I just don't see he's going to have to leave on his own, because he's bringing billions of dollars to all these fat, rich shareholders, and no one's ever going to fire him. So the only way to ever truly protest is to stop going to matches. And it's very clear that no one will ever do that. It's been years now, and people are still going to the game. They're like, oh, we'll protest at the 7th minute, and then we'll go back to watching the game. You've already given them your money. You've already bought beers at the pub. You've already bought jerseys at the team store. Like, people are going to have to stop going to matches, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. So I do think this protesting is unfortunately futile. I think it's valid, and I agree with it to a very large extent, but I just don't think, as someone becoming more disillusioned with massive corporations and big companies in our modern world, Tottenham Hotspur is never going to make that change, unless he stops booking Beyonce 6 days a summer at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So there's nothing that we're going to change about that, I don't think.
Hey, I don't know if either of you are Star Trek fans, but someone out there listening is a Star Trek fan, and I will say resistance is futile when it comes to these things.
Dude, Scott, speaking of Star Trek, did you see that interview with, I don't know if it was like a women's like Spurs player or like manager or something today?
No, was it Robert Villaham?
No, but her haircut was like Spock's exact haircut.
Ooh, okay, I respect that.
I need to find it. I don't even know. It was like going viral on Twitter.
My guess
I don't know who it was. She looked older, so I thought she was like a manager type.
That's interesting. Ash Neville has a pseudo Vulcan haircut. So maybe Ash Neville.
That's got to be her for sure. I just Googled.
Think so. Yeah.
Is it her?
Probably. Before we get to the protest too, let's take a second. Spurs women did fall yesterday to Arsenal in the derby. A really tough loss for Spurs women. I think one of the things I would like to start doing on Emerald and Lilywhite is showing a little more light and love to the women's team. We had a really tough one yesterday. I'll just talk for a second on this. Robert Villaham, the current manager, there's parallels to the men's team in terms of playing very attacking-minded football, maybe not having exactly the personnel required to do that, trying to play out the back in a way that isn't really suiting the personnel and causing problems, again, trying to play out the back. And Spurs looked quite lackluster yesterday in the derby, so a really tough one. And I think the women are going to have to look at some sort of course correction, whether it's Robert Villaham himself, and I'm not asking for his head because I think he's a great manager, but really what it comes down to is Levy and the ownership have invested absolutely nothing in the women's team. I think they kind of jumped on board for about a year.
We signed Alex Morgan.
Exactly, and that's a huge part of what I'll mention. And Jonathan Liu with I think the Evening Standard, if I'm not mistaken, put out an article recently paralleling the men's and women's teams and how it all kind of flows up to one common denominator, which is Daniel Levy and a reluctance to invest in the footballing operation. So if you're interested, find that article. Again, Jonathan Liu, it's Liew. I've heard from some really close friends of mine that I trust and love dearly that he maybe isn't the most, I don't know, just ethical journalist, or maybe that's not the right word, but maybe just kind of like gross some of the stuff that he writes, whatever. But an interesting article nonetheless if you're looking to learn more about the women's team and maybe the lack of an investment there. But that ties us back to Levy. I think I like everything you're saying, Robbie. First of all, and I'll just soapbox for a second here. If you're going to protest, don't go to the match. If you're going to protest and then go to the match and have a good time and then protest after, I think you're probably just like being mad more than you're actually protesting against Spurs, right? And just kind of the flavor of the week type of thing, right? So if you really want to protest, buy tickets, don't go. Buy 10 tickets, don't go. Buy 20, right? Really put your money where your mouth is, don't go. I do believe that Levy is a problem when it comes to the on-field product, and we haven't won in a while. When we did win, it was a time where football wasn't big money stuff, right? And it was easier to compete. I think in the 80s, like 150,000 was like just shattering the ceiling when it comes to transfer fees, right? So things are different now. As much as I don't think Levy's done a good enough job with the on-field product, I think his off-field stuff has put us in a position where we're able to complain that it's not quite good enough on the field, because there are, I don't know, maybe 90 other teams in England that would love to be Spurs, right? Maybe 5 that wouldn't, is what it comes down to, right? And so, again, I think there's layers and layers to this. And yes, it's not great on the field. Yes, it's pretty great off the field. That allows us to be in a position where we can compete on the field. And I think maybe we just got to figure out what that looks like. For me, it's all wage structure. I've talked about this. We have the highest paid chairman and the lowest profit to wage structure ratio in the Premier League. There's money there. It's not about transfer fees. It's about how much you're willing to pay players to get them to come to Spurs. That's why, in my opinion, I've said it before, when we sign these absolute world beaters like Tanguy Ndombele, like Gio Lo Celso, they're willing to take a wage structure that's a lot, probably $100,000 less than other teams that have a better wage structure would have given them. Those teams didn't give them the wages because they didn't deem them good enough, and they come to Spurs, and we kind of play it off like we've just signed the next best thing, right? So it's all wage structure. Until that happens, it's really not gonna matter. But again, ultimately, all I'm really saying more than anything is, if you really want to hit Levy where it hurts, buy 10 tickets, don't go. And then that will drive home the agenda much more than just yelling before a match and then going in and having a great time and then yelling again after the match. End of rant. Max, you want to get in on any of this?
I just like talking ball, man.
Yeah.
I'm just over it, dude. I'm tired of hearing about it. Like, I'm going to talk about the players that we sign. If we sign them, I'm going to be upset if we don't sign any players. But at the end of the day, I watch the game, and that's what I care about the most. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit harder on Ange, and a little bit harder on the players. But, I think that all I can do, I don't really know that much about the behind the scenes, the business aspect, whatever it may be. It's like this with all my sports teams, like Woody Johnson. Everyone knows him. He's the Jets owner. Everyone hates him. I don't care really. Like, if he sells the team, it happens. Like, I don't think anything we can do is going to change that. But shout out to the people who are protesting. I hope like someday that they get noticed and something does change. But until that happens, I'm here to talk about soccer and what we did in the Manchester United game on the weekend.
Look, I think that's a good episode title. I just want to talk about ball. That's what we'll call this episode. Back to football. We'll bridge here, media to football, and say that if anyone's paying attention, Spurs are all of a sudden really good again, back to winning ways. Long may it continue from the media. Now everybody's super just disgusted and unhappy with Man United and Ruben Amorim. So it's crazy what one match can do for you, Robbie. I think you said yesterday maybe Man United is the new villain for the media, and it looks to be so, because all of a sudden Spurs, best players are back, and rock on, baby. Like I said, we're in the title hunt again, according to the media. So we appreciate the media for that. Again, Spurs beat Man United 1-0. Long may victories continue. Kulu came out and said in some sort of interview, article, whatever you want to call it this morning, that it was all about trying to put a run together, a string of wins in the Premier League. And I think with some of the guys we're getting back, there's every reason to think we can do that. We got Ipswich this weekend. It's Saturday. Big one. We owe them one. I believe it's at Ipswich, if I'm not mistaken. We did lose to them at home earlier in the season. Really, really need 3 points here. And I'm not joking when I say this. Man United and Southampton are the two teams in the league where I feel extremely confident in getting a result. Everyone else, I think we really gotta bring it in order to make it happen. Max, what do you make of this one? What are your thoughts going into it?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what the lineup is this weekend. It's a great opportunity to rotate the squad, and I think, we can touch on what we saw people coming back against United. Vicario, Udogie was on the bench. He didn't appear. Johnson appeared. Odegaard appeared. And obviously we just had a long conversation about Maddison. Shout out Vicario. What a performance.
Thank you. Yeah.
What a performance. That was absolutely massive. Just immediately felt his impact back there. I don't know how many of those shots Kinski saves. I don't think it's all of them. Kinski, he brings a different skill set, but when it comes to shot stopping, 5 saves from Vicario. So shout out to him. He will obviously be in the lineup against Ipswich on Saturday. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, I think we gave a lot of attention to the midfield and the attack on this episode. Paired with Vicario, the rest of the back line getting a clean sheet, a 1-0 win, the second ever 1-0 win under Ange. Danso, Davies, absolutely fantastic, both of them. Danso comes off with a knock. I think he's fine. Like, that's what it seemed like. He's pretty much fine. He was really good. He was really good yesterday. Davies also another class performance. And shout out to Porro too. He was all right. I mean, he was pretty good. Obviously played a lot of minutes. Bentancur, I thought was pretty good. I thought he was better than he has been. So shout out to him. And then above all else, shout out Jed Spence. Absolutely colossal performance from him. Personally, my man of the match. And I am looking forward to seeing Spence and Udogie as the fullback pairing this weekend. That would be absolutely incredible. And then alongside them, I hope to see Danso, maybe like Danso, Archie Gray, center back pairing could be interesting. I think Odegaard and Johnson on the wings would be awesome. And then whatever he wants to do in the midfield. But yeah, shout out Jed Spence, shout out Vicario, my 2 best players from that match. So yeah, just wanted to give them a shout out before we moved on.
I'm glad you brought up Vicario. I personally don't think we win that game if Vicario doesn't play. I think we probably concede 2 or 3 goals. Not a knock on Kinski. Vicario's a phenomenal goalkeeper, and there's a reason he's getting capped ahead of Donnarumma now and again. Now, he's not the number 1 for Italy, but he's getting opportunities to prove himself of being the number 1 for Italy, which says something or enough, right? Tim Howard, who, yes, he's been a shithead when it comes to his Spurs content as of late, but very talented goalkeeper. I would say the best the U.S. has ever produced. There's a Casey Keller and a Brad Guzan. No, sorry, not Brad Guzan, but Casey Keller and what?
Brad Friedel.
Brad Friedel, thank you. Spurs keeper.
Spurs legend.
Yeah, exactly. Casey Keller and Brad Friedel argument.
Shout out Casey Keller from Olympia, my hometown.
Oh, shit.
And Sounders legend.
Let's go. Yeah, love both of them. Brad's still very much involved in football. I think he's a sporting director for Besiktas right now, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty rad, actually. But yeah, Tim Howard, phenomenal keeper. He did come out and say he thinks Vicario is the number 1 shot stopper in the Premier League, and I would have to wholeheartedly agree with him. I think a lot of Allison, a lot of Ederson conversation, but I think both of them are trending downward, and I think Vicario is trending upward. Dare I say something controversial, right? So really happy to have Vicario back. He's also just a natural leader. I mean, the dude fucking rages every time he's on the pitch. The players talk about it, his absolute desire to win at all costs, his passion, that grinta. Let me get the hand gesture in there properly, but the grinta that an Italian footballer carries is evident, flows through the veins of Vicario. He's my shout for captain if we want to get into that conversation too, which maybe we don't now, but I think Vicario is the natural leader that we desperately needed, and his lack of presence, I think, factors into how poor we've been, not only because of his goalkeeping, but again, just that personality that he brings to the squad. So super happy to have Vicario back. So happy that he's at Spurs. Also, definitely want to double click on Pedro Porro, Jed Spence. Pedro Porro and Spence both played together. But I want to double click on Jed Spence. Robbie, I'll come to you for a second. And I know Max is going to want to get on this too, but Jed Spence went from club signing to completely outcasted to, okay, he might go on loan this year. It's okay, he's sniffing around the squad, to all of a sudden probably our best player when it really comes down to it. What are the fans saying about Jed Spence right now?
Yeah, I think I'm remaining cautious. I'm a big fan of Jed, love what he's doing, but I think we need to be cautious now of managing his minutes too. Like, we need to get to the point where it's like, hey, let's not start Jed Spence every single game and then he pulls his hamstring. Is we're kind of where we're starting to get to. So I do hope we rotate Udogie at least a little bit, just to start pulling the load off Jed Spence a little bit. But yeah, no, I think it was obvious to start the year. He didn't get the playing time immediately, but I think Ange made that comment this summer where he was like, yeah, he like blew me away. He like just everything we told him to do, he did. He worked hard. And then we were all kind of confused, like, well, then why isn't he playing? And then he just finally got his moment, and now he's here. I think, yeah, we'd love to see him play right back eventually. But I would also love to see him take a rest eventually at this point, just to like start rotating people in again. This was the tweet I saw this week that I thought I didn't really realize this, and some people are making a huge deal out of this, but I think it was last year we loaned him to Genoa or one of the Italian teams. Yeah. And that loan included a 10 million euro option to buy. And everyone was like, yep, he's gone. So can you imagine if he was sold for 10 million euros and was playing like this anywhere else, and how we would have felt about that? But yeah, no, I think we're all excited. We all were excited when we signed him. I was excited when we signed him, but Conte shit on that pretty quickly. But yeah, I think he's here. He's ready. But yeah, the thing I'll soapbox for is like, we need to sit him soon, because he's going to either get tired or hurt. And we've seen that too many times this year. So let's not overrun him. Let's switch him out at some point. But
yeah, well said. I completely agree. Max, get in on this, man. I know you're a big Jed Spence guy.
Yeah, dude, he's just been so good. Like, offensively and defensively, he's been exceptional marking the wingers. Against United, against Mo Salah, we've seen it. And then in like, he was unpressable yesterday. They tried to press him. He would get out of it. He would launch breaks. He was essentially flawless in his execution, both on the offensive and defensive end. And you can't ask for much more from the guy. Like, we literally wrote him off 2 years ago, but like, we didn't even give him a chance. We didn't even give him a chance to play 2 years ago. Loaned him out twice. I think personally, I always just wanted to see him. I just wanted him to get a shot. And I'm not going to sit here and give Ange credit for this shit either, because he didn't even put him in the Europa League squad this season. It's not like, Ange like found this gem. Like, Ange didn't believe in the guy either. I think what happened is that he got the ego death that he needed. It was always like an attitude thing with Jed Spence. That was always the reports. I think he finally overcame that, and now we're seeing like his physical capabilities are unbelievable for his position. He's so strong, fast. He's just like a perfect fullback for this Ange system. And I can't wait. Like, I think we really found a huge piece of our future. And to Robbie's point, I completely agree. Poro, we're seeing how he's been affected by the minutes. If we can figure out a way to rotate Udogi, Poro, Spence, and then maybe hopefully get another fullback in summer, I think we could have a really, really strong core at that position going into next season.
Yeah, for sure. And Archie Gray's always there too. I know we all want him as a 6, right? So I agree that we need to bring another fullback in. Davies is a center back for as long as he's probably at Spurs at this point due to the lack of depth there, right? So, but yeah, Poro, Spence, and Udogi are 3 fantastic fullbacks, and you can add a 4th, and things look really, really good for Spurs. Yeah, and I also think that it's interesting to talk about Danzo for a second. He's proven to be, in the short time that he's been at Spurs, a really good fit for the system. I mean, he's strong, he's pacey, he's good on the ball. Those are things we're asking for. He's quick, right? Pacey, quick, I think are a little bit different things, right? He's both of them. The only hole that I can poke in it, and I'm not looking to, I'm just staying objective, is I think he's going to have to continue, and this is just because he's so new, but he's going to just have to continue to bed in, because there was a few times where he didn't keep flush with the line. He made that on that Garnacho chance where Garnacho hit it into Rosie. Danzo made a wonderful last-ditch effort to skew Garnacho, but Garnacho was only onside. I think it was a Garnacho chance. Don't hold me to it, but Danzo kept him on by being 5 yards behind.
There was one that Dallo had that they called offsides, but he was clearly onsides because Poro was holding him on.
Poro, yeah.
But we got bailed out. Like, he missed anyway, so I guess it didn't matter. But
yeah,
like, they called him offsides, but then they let the play finish because of the new rules, and he was probably onside. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I agree. The back line, some communicate. We've just had so much inconsistency there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that's like the hardest thing for a back line to do is stay flush and in a perfect line. I've never played center back. I have dabbled into fullback here and there, right? And it can be a challenge, but you know, when you're changing the back line every match, like you just said, it becomes really hard to stay flush. So yeah, I'll get it. Just has to work itself out.
Speaking of back line, Christian Romero, proof of life, has come in. He was in attendance at the game.
Interesting.
Videos of him celebrating the Maddison goal.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
Yeah. So
he hasn't been sold to Madrid quite yet. Wonderful news.
Oh, could he be there in Ipswich? Who knows? I don't know.
I don't know if I'm ready to throw him right back in. We should be able to beat Ipswich. We've probably said that before this season, so choose our words wisely.
Yeah.
It is a big one. It is a big one.
I've got some stats to strike the fear in your hearts for this Ipswich match. I was just looking at the Premier League table and the recent 5 matches. Just so you guys know, there is one team in the entire Premier League that has not won a game in their previous 5 matches. That is Ipswich. They are playing Dr. Tottenham this weekend. So think about that one. They also haven't. It's been 6 matches that they haven't won. They drawed, lost, drawed in their last 6 matches. The last time we played them before they won, they drawed, lost, drawed. So not to point any patterns out here, but as a Tottenham fan, we must acknowledge the vibe, the energy, the juju that is in this universe, and we are playing a team the only team in England that has not won a game in their last 6 matches. And they're playing us, of course. So please don't let that happen. But we know it's not out of the question.
But I think it's sneaky. They're in a sneaky, like a little bit of run of form too, because they played the FA Cup and beat Coventry 4-1 last weekend. And then this weekend, they had a red card in the first half and still drew Villa, which is, I mean, we just played Villa and got smoked. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. Like, they kind of cooked us last time. I can't say I'm super confident in this, but I think if we see like a Brennan Johnson or an Odebear like in for Kulusevski and Son, I would feel a lot better just having like those fresh legs available in the starting lineup and just hopefully jumping out to a lead. I think those two players could really be exciting. Odebear provides something different, a 1v1 ability that Brennan Johnson doesn't have, but Brennan Johnson does provide the finished product. If we see him flanking Tell, I would feel fairly confident that we're going to score some goals on this Ipswich defense.
Yeah, they're going to be well shaped, we could say, and organized for sure in defense. I think an Odebear helps. I think a Tell helps. I think Johnson could be a good factor in the second half. If we're ahead, especially. But if Ipswich is chasing anything, I think Johnson's super efficient in transition and be all for that. But for me, it's all about Maddison. I think if we're going to beat them, I think Maddison's going to find a goal. And if Maddison doesn't find a goal, I could see a draw or a loss even right now. I really think Maddison's going to be the key factor here. And we've talked a lot about that, so we won't get into why that is, right? But, expecting and hoping for a big one from James Maddison for sure. But we need it. We need 3 points. We need this run to continue. We did jump from 15th to 12th place with that victory over United, which is a really refreshing thing to see, right? Not even joking when I say this, but we can feel comfortable that things are going to be okay this season and really focus on the Europa League with each and every point that we acquire. And we're only 11 points off of 7th, and crazier things have happened. So I don't care if we get Europe or not. That's not the point of me saying that, right? But I just want to see us continue to secure points in the league and just take form into what are going to be massive matches down the road in the Europa League. I think our season is going to truly hinge on singular matches. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, right? So we need form in the league to be able to play well in those matches, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're 11 points out of 7th. We are 14 points out of top 4.
Let's go.
So if you're gonna say, hey, if you're gonna say 11 points is feasible, why not 3 more? So
100%. Well, how far off the top are we?
A little bit further. We are 30 points off the top.
Yeah.
10 matches.
So, yeah.
We've got enough.
It takes.
Yeah. We've got enough. Mathematically,
City's got 44 points. We've got 30. So to get to 4th, beating them in a week and a half is of utmost importance.
Okay. You know what? Maybe we call this episode "It's Mathematically Possible" because it is. There's a lot of titles being thrown around here. We'll have to see what comes out. Keep your eyes peeled, listeners, for a fantastic title and maybe a decent episode to go with it.
Ooh, and City's got Liverpool before they play us, so let's hope they're battered and down on their luck after a Liverpool loss before they come play us. And their
schedule is absolutely brutal right now.
Is it?
It's like Madrid, like I think it's like Madrid, us, Liverpool. I don't know off the top of my head, and then they play like Forest.
And I've been saying for a while, Spurs league schedule it's never going to be easy, but it is lightening up compared to what we've been running through. Like I was like, who have we played twice already? We've played Arsenal twice already. We played Liverpool twice, or did we play them in the Carabao Cup and not twice in the league? I can't remember. Yeah, we play Liverpool later, I think. Yeah. But a decent amount of the top half we've already played twice. I think we still play Bournemouth, but like Bournemouth is beatable on any day. We just have to beat them. I think we obviously have to play Forest again, which again, they're not like a terrifying team, but of course they're doing well. Chelsea's kind of on a weird slump right now. Newcastle slumping. I mean, Fulham, come on. I know we didn't beat them last time, but like there's a bunch of teams that we play again where it's like, hey, if we're all healthy, we might win more than we lose in the remaining games that we have. So
well said.
Anything is possible.
Well said. Fellas, getting close to wrapping it up here, but before we do, as always, we want to take a chance to bring you information from the Academy and the loan players. As always, brought to you by our wonderful partners at the Wits End, Rainier Growlers, and Cascades. You can find Cascades and Rainier Growlers in Puyallup. You can find the Wits End in Finney Ridge, Seattle. That is the home of the Northside Seattle Spurs. Of course, again, Rainier Growlers and Cascades, the home of Southside Seattle Spurs. Get down to one of the pubs, whatever's closest to you, or make the journey to meet new people. You know, if you're up for it, watch Spurs with some good people from the great city of Seattle. It really helps continue to grow Seattle Spurs, which is the goal here. The bigger Seattle Spurs grows, the bigger Spurs grows in the city of Seattle, of course. And we want to see more Spurs kits than Man City kits and Arsenal kits and Liverpool kits, right? That's the ultimate goal. So get down one of those pubs for sure. We appreciate their support. Max, what do you got for us when it comes to academy players and loan players?
Yeah, so Tottenham Academy falls 2-0 today to Manchester City. Tyrese Hall starting at the false 9. I mean, we've said it so many times. Our academy had an incredible team last year. They continue to struggle this year. I worry that it's at the expense of the development of some players. Like, why is Tyrese Hall playing false 9? He's like a 6, like, or at least I thought he looked like a great 6 last summer. So they continue to struggle, although there are some interesting players. Reece Russell-Denny gets another start, his second for this team. And then for the loan, West Brom, first start and a hard-fought draw for Will Lancashire. He didn't score, but it's good to see him getting starts for them. That's awesome. Hopefully he starts getting into the goals, and we'll see some more progress from him. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Word. We appreciate it.
I got quick two adds to that. Just quickly from a Twitter standpoint, I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but a big collection of the West Brom fans have started tweeting about how bad Will Lancashire is on like wink wink because they want to keep him. There's been a lot of interactions saying, like, Tottenham fans saying, hey, West Brom fans, like, what do you guys think? And they're like, man, it would sure be a shame if we had to keep him for 3 more years. Or, you know, like, everyone is pretty much suggesting that Lancashire's doing well. I do think he scored for them already at one point, maybe not in the last weekend, but I thought he did score a goal for them. Maybe not, but yeah, the fans seem to be happy for. I don't know what West Brom's prospects are, so the bar's probably low.
I don't think he's scored yet.
And then the other one, this isn't really loan or anything, but this guy was before my time. He literally left the year before I started supporting Spurs. But you guys may know the name. I'm mispronouncing it. Nabil Bentaleb.
I love Nabil.
He
had a heart attack, right?
Yeah, he had cardiac arrest in the last year, and he just played his first match back from it with a pacemaker, and he scored like 6 minutes after coming on the pitch for Lille. So big vibes for him.
Super happy for Nabil. I will say Nabil Bentaleb. I have a Bentaleb kit. It's the 2014, I think, with the blue sash across the white kit. It might have been
I have that one for Sonny.
Nice, good kit. I mean, not my favorite, but a solid kit. It was Under Armour. Got the Bentaleb kit.
I mean,
Bentaleb,
why did you buy that?
Oh, it was like an HD Gate $10 purchase, baby. I was stashing them that year, But no, Bentaleb, I did really, really enjoy watching him play. He was actually, fun fact, the partner to one Ryan Mason, who some of us maybe have heard of, right? They played in the double pivot together under Pochettino. Bentaleb and Mason actually kicked off the Pochettino era as the true double pivot to Pochettino's infamous 4-2-3-1. So super happy for Nabil. I'm really glad you brought that up. He's also from Lille, so he's playing for his hometown club. Obviously, we wish Nabil the best prayers to him. Going through something like that, I can't imagine the strength and determination it takes to get back on the pitch after that, right? You would truly know that. I mean, not know, because Maddison is fantastic and I'm sure he's in good hands, but you'd always have that thought in the back of your head, what if this happens again, right? And that's got to be something that's tough to overcome. And shout to Nabil. I'm glad you brought that up. I love me some Bentaleb. I believe he's been capped at the World Cup with Algeria as well. So,
yes.
A really good footballer, and wish Nabil all the best and wish Lille all the best. I think they're a fun little tidy team with a fantastic manager. Yeah, glad you brought that up. But yeah, that's going to wrap it here, folks. Appreciate everybody who's rocked with us for the last hour. It's been episode 36. Keep your eyes peeled for whatever name we come up with. For myself, you can find me at Scotchy Bird. Max, you can find at Going Limbs, Robbie at Robbie Light, and Robbie_Light on Twitter. The three of us appreciate everybody's time. You can find us at Lilywhite on all social media platforms. Follow Seattle Spurs. We are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. It is at Seattle Spurs on all social media platforms. Also, please be sure to like and subscribe. It not only helps us and Emerald and Lilywhite, but most importantly, helps Seattle Spurs. That's what this is all about. As I said earlier, we want to continue to grow the Seattle Spurs brand, but most importantly, Spurs in the city of Seattle, right, as we look to continue to grow. But yeah, we appreciate everybody's time. Again, Wits End in Finney Ridge, Rainier Growlers and Cascades down in Puyallup, the official homes of Seattle Spurs. We appreciate and love all of our partners. Get down to one of the pubs, tip your bartender as well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.